Konnichiwa! In today's show, I want to talk about something that I've been asking myself for a while now. Is retro video game collecting dead? Now, I don't mean is retro collecting dead as in me collecting and building up a collection of retro video games. I mean physically going out there and buying retro video games. Let's get into it. Game on! Now, those of you that have been following the channel for even a short while will know that I love my gaming. It's not just my hobby, it's my job. I make AAA games for a living, and then I come home and I enjoy my retro gaming collection, as well as playing modern games as well. Now, one of the things I absolutely love about retro gaming is going out to shops or stores or thrift shops and just kind of sieving through the old retro games that they've got there. It's just kind of part of the whole experience for me. But in the last year or two, I found this really kind of key part, this really important part for me in retro game collecting disappearing. The actual physical act of going out there and collecting retro video games. Since the early 2000s, I've really kind of considered myself a retro video games collector and gamer of retro video games, and that's because before then, those consoles were not retro, they were just the current gen consoles. Now, in early 2000, I was working for Sony PlayStation in London. And there were a ton of stores where I could go and get my retro games. Mega Drive, NES, SNES, Sega Saturn, obscure games, Game & Watch games. And one of the big outlets was CEX. But there were a ton of other small stores that were just selling a ton of old retro games in there. I love just going in there and finding games that I'd never heard of, or games that I've always wanted but they were too expensive when they originally came out. Just browsing through the box art, looking at the screenshots, it was just such a brilliant experience. I used to go out at lunch times just to go to the store, just to kind of look what they had and not even buy anything. It was a great way of just kind of immersing myself into the hobby which I love. But slowly over time, these shops were closing down or vanishing. CEX, who had one of the biggest collections of retro video games in London, disappeared completely. I mean, the shop didn't disappear, they just stopped selling retro games. And they had this amazing basement of just floor-to-wall video games. They had a wall with a glass screen across it that had all of their rare stuff in there as well. And so there was a time period, say like 2005 to 2007, where it was really hard for me to find anywhere to buy retro video games, until I came across eBay. When I discovered eBay for the first time, it was a freaking gold mine for me. It had a ton of retro games on there, people that were just getting rid of stuff that were in their loft, old video games they didn't want. And in the early days, that's what eBay was. People selling off things they didn't want for kind of reasonable prices, often for dirt cheap prices. I found an outlet, an easy way to buy retro video games at a really decent price. In fact, I even managed to pick up my Mega CD Mark I with over 50 Mega Drive games for just £50, plus I think postage and packaging, which was maybe £10, so what, £60? I don't know what that is now, maybe $80 I paid. And it was brilliant. I got all this stuff, I felt like I got a good deal. That person probably felt they got a good deal, they cleared some stuff out their loft, and it was awesome. And for a time, it was really good. I loved eBay. It was a way for me to carry on collecting my retro video games, a way of fueling my hobby after all these really cool retro video game stores had closed down. But then things started to go bad. People realized they could start charging more and people would pay more for retro video games. We all know this and we've gone through it. There's a ton of videos out there talking about retro video games and the price of them. And for a while I was kind of pretty accepting of this, like, yeah, retro gaming prices are going to go up. People are getting more into them, people want games that were really rare, so yeah, prices are going to go up. And I didn't really have a problem with it. But over time, the volume in which I bought retro video games over eBay has just gone down. The prices have become super expensive, and I don't know if we're seeing these games becoming too expensive or whether they're just actually hitting their real market value. But in any case, my kind of volume, the amount of video games that I could afford to buy from eBay, kind of dropped. And so I was in search again for a good retro video game. Now, where I live on the south coast of England, there is nothing. Like, I live near a big city. I live in between two big cities on the south coast, and there is nothing. There are no conferences, there are no retro video game stores, and that's primarily because eBay's got rid of all the sellers, especially where I am at the moment. Online shopping in the south of England was killing, and still is killing, bricks and mortar shops. So for me, buying and going out there and having that retro gaming collecting experience wasn't available. Not until I got my new job, which is further along down the south coast. It actually takes me 2 hours to commute into work and 2 hours to commute back. But they have a retro game store there. And so for the last year, I've been indulging myself again, like it's kind of early 2000s. Going down there, just sitting in the store, chatting to the guys, talking about retro video games, the stuff we really wanted to see. And it's really, really cool in there. Now, one of the things they'll acknowledge is that eBay kind of drives a lot of their pricing. And I can't blame them for that. But the thing I love is that when I go into their store and I pick up a game, if it's missing a manual, it won't cost as much as a game that has a manual. If the case is a bit battered, again, it will be cheaper than buying something that's in pristine condition. But this week, reality hit home again. I walked into the store, I was kind of browsing stuff. There's a copy of Phantasy Star 3, which I used to own, manual, box, mint condition, £2 cheaper than if I was to buy it on eBay. So I picked that up straight away. And then on one of the shelves there's a pristine copy of Soul Calibur 5 for the PlayStation 3 for £14. It's like, what, $15? So again, I was like, this is brilliant. I've got myself another bargain. And I kind of browsed through the other games, picked up some old ones that I kind of, I wouldn't mind getting that, but maybe next week. While I was browsing, the guys who own the shop were having a discussion with another customer where they were basically talking about shutting down the store because they can make more money on eBay and more money on Facebook. And it's like, here we go again. Another store, another place for me to actually go and enjoy collecting video games, and it looks like it's going to vanish as well. And there is no other video game store around, no retro video game store. In fact, there's no video game store around there anymore. They've all gone. So for me, within a 150-mile distance of traveling, there is no retro video game stores. And so I have to just ask myself, like, is retro video game collecting dying? And for me, I think it is. Like, they do have some shows in the UK, but a lot of them are up north. You might get one come down to London. Again, though, that's like, I have to spend £70, $80 to get up to London on the train. You've got to get up there early enough, so you might have to do a night over. It's just kind of really cost prohibitive to go up to London, and definitely to go up north. This has really just brought me down. Like, I don't want to go back to eBay. Like, eBay's great for something that's rare, something I just can't get. Then I go there, I accept the price is going to be higher, and that's cool. But eBay has just become a cesspool for sellers. Like, I went on there now and calculated how much it would cost to buy, remember that mega CD I spoke about and 50 games? It would cost me £2,350 to buy all of those games and that console again. That's ridiculous. That's a stupid amount of money. And the thing that really, really pees me off about this whole thing is I went on there to have a look how much the mega CD is on there. There's a £230 mega CD in there. The box looks like it's been buried underground for 6 years, pulled out of the ground, and then smeared in manure. It's disgusting. And they want £230 for something they've not looked after that's just been destroyed. If I was to go to the retro gaming store and they had that, that would be hugely discounted, right? The box is a big part of that. If it doesn't come with the box, yeah, the console is great, and that's kind of the main, I guess, point of why you're buying it. But the box is a whole, for me at least, the box is part of the product. Now, if I was buying a car, I wouldn't go out there and pay the same price for a car where the paintwork was scratched, peeling and rusting, but the engine's fine and the interior's okay. I'd pay less. But here on eBay for retro video games, people think they can charge the same price, and in some cases, more. I can't deal with eBay anymore as my main source of buying video games. I need to find somewhere else. I really hope my retro gaming store stays open. I have a great rapport with those guys. It's awesome just to talk about retro video gaming. Even though I work in the games industry, there's so few people that play or collect retro video games, which is to be expected, right? We're making AAA bleeding edge console games, and so people are playing the latest things to keep themselves informed and relevant in the industry. So obviously this is something that's really important to me, something that I really value about my retro video game collecting. But what's it like for you? Let me know in the comments below if you have the same problems. Do you live in an area where collecting retro video games is difficult, where you're kind of limited to eBay? Or do you live in an area where you can just walk down the street and someone has a stash of Master System games for sale? It's been a bit of a ranty, unfocused show this week, but it's something I wanted to get off my chest. If you're new to the channel, it's not always like this. There's other things we talk about, retro video game collecting, my collection here, retro video gaming history. And if you'd like to see more of these videos, then you can subscribe by clicking on my little pixel head below. And, you know, I say this every week, you know the drill. Click on these videos if you haven't already.